I began crying out and I began screaming out to God, God, forgive me. And the gun went off. My lungs began to fill up with blood. My ears, I began to become deaf, very slowly, faintly become deaf. My eyes became blind. My eyes were open and I became blinded, and I knew that death was gripping my soul. And then all of a sudden, I felt myself, my soul, leave my body, and I instantly began falling and falling. And at that moment, I knew I was no longer in control of my destiny. And I ended up in a place that was complete torment. And my body was burning.
Weeks I sat, prayed, and nothing happens. So, you know what? I'm going to go do my own thing. I'm going to go walk my own path. I'm going to do what pleases me. Obviously, at that very moment, I felt the power of God filled the room. Now, in Islam, the greatest sin you can commit, and you can never be forgiven for that, is doubting God Himself. That Islam, they teach you that Allah never visits, God never visits human beings. I feel, and I know against Islam I have committed the greatest sin that can never be forgiven. God's presence is in the room, and I'm confronted immediately with His holiness, which puts this weight of sin upon me. And I know that because He is just, He must kill me. He must wipe me off the face of the earth because I'm so full of sin. And I cried because I literally didn't want to die. But I knew there is no chance. He was so holy and I was so wicked. So I just ran to the corner of the room and I held my head in my arms and I just cried out, God forgive me, God forgive me, God forgive me, God forgive me. And I just said, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me. And as I was crying and just saying, forgive me, I felt a touch on my shoulder saying, I forgive you. And the very instant those words were spoken, I physically felt forgiven. And I couldn't understand it. I said, wait a minute, we say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God who is merciful and gracious. But we don't know if you are forgiven till the day of judgment. That is why there is not one single verse in the Quran that says Muhammad is in the heaven. He must wait like all people for the day of Qiyamah, the day of resurrection, and all shall be judged on that day. So, how is it that, who is this God that says, I forgive you and I feel forgiven today? And I asked, I said, who are you? They can forgive me and I feel forgiven today. And says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. The moment I heard those words, I knew it's of a great importance, but I had absolutely no idea what that meant. I still had no clue who this God is. So I asked him, what is your name? Jesus Christ, the living God, he answered. And the moment he spoke those words, it was as if every single bone was taken out of my body and I just fell on my face to the ground and I started weeping in the presence of God. I just wept. I still can't, this 18 years have gone by, but I still can't forget.
Remember when I came back into my body. You know, I don't know where I was out of my body. Now there are people that talk about a light. There are people that talk about floating above. There are people that talk about a feeling of warmth and love. I didn't feel any of that. I felt none of that. I felt untold terror. Untold terror. Because I knew that if I ever went all the way, if I slipped all the way, I would never get back. Now, in my beings of beings, I knew that. And so
rise out of my body up into that room. And I knew what was happening. I have never been more alive.
Were you afraid?
No, that was the incredible thing. I have never felt such peace and such love. As I rose up into that room, I could see everything down below me that was occurring. And of all the profound things I could have thought or said, I said, this is very interesting. Leave it to a lawyer.
Leave it to a lawyer.
I started to walk over towards the sofa when all of a sudden, there he was, Jesus Christ. He stood right in front of me, as real as can be. I could clearly see him, and he was in his resurrection body. He was totally a human man. I was stunned to see someone standing in the living room when I hadn't even heard anybody come in, but I totally knew it was Christ. And I've heard testimonies from people, or accounts from people, I should say, where they said to me that they saw a spiritual being that they think it was Christ. But I don't believe it, because when you stand before Christ, it's very clear who he is, that he's God, and that he's the creator of heaven and earth. And I really believe that whether you're animal or human or a plant or a flower, you will recognize God. There could be no mistake about it. And he spoke to me, and he said, you say right when you say you're going to hell. Look, now mind you, all those pastors had been telling me that I was going to heaven, and Sunday school teachers and everybody, but he said, you say right when you say you're going to hell.
4 times I tried to kill myself, but every time I tried, I was too scared to tie the other end. And I'll never forget the last time. Again, I tried. Again, I was like, come on, do it. And again, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't tie it tight. I was broken. And if I was ever aware of my shame, I was aware of my shame at that moment. And I remember lying down on the ground. In that moment, all of a sudden, the room fills with this glorious light. And I turn around to see what's going on, and there is Jesus. And he's standing in front of me with this big grin and smile on his face. And it was at that lowest point that he met me.
Showing me himself and showing me who he is and where he stands in relation to me and to life. And I was just getting so many downloads about, oh my gosh, this is so simple. Jesus is the Lord. Jesus is the Son of God. It's not some complex, mystical thing.
Got there. And they loaded me in the back of the ambulance, and both my lungs collapsed on the spot. They life-flighted me to the University Hospital. On the way there, I died. I got to meet Jesus that night, on Good Friday. He was the most beautiful, bright light I've ever seen in my life. Words can't even describe it. And the feeling to be in his presence was more glorious than anything I could have ever asked for or dreamed of.
Back of the sleeper. And so I crawled back there and I laid down on the bed in the back of the sleeper. And I put a pillow over my stomach and I curled up into a fetal position. And I felt something inside of me snap. It just snapped. And I can't say that I went to sleep because I didn't really go to sleep. But it was like I kind of left. And all of a sudden I was in a really, really dark place. It was so dark. I was aware, and it was so dark. I opened my eyes really wide and looked around me to see if I could see any light at all, and there was no light anywhere. And I looked all around me. I couldn't see even a shred of light, and I was so frightened. The darkest room you've ever been in, and there was no light at all. And I was there, and I reached up, and I called out. And I don't remember what I said. I don't remember what I called out to. But I reached up, and I called out, and all of a sudden, the darkness was folded back. It was just folded back. And there was this man standing there, and he was high above me. And he looked down at me, and he was so beautiful. And he looked down at me, and he said, "Do not fear, my child." And I didn't know who he was. But he said, "Do not fear, my child." That was the last thing I remember hearing.
In my head, I felt this presence. I felt this presence all around me like I'd never ever felt before. I knew someone was there with me, you know? Someone very, very powerful and very loving. And it was like I knew it was Jesus. I can't even describe it. I can't, it's so hard to, it was like the room got lighter, but I don't know if it really did. I just felt it. Like I just felt this person there with me, and I just said, "Is that you?" And a voice immediately, like, it rang through me. Like it was like I could hear it, but it was just coming through my whole body, and it was the sweetest voice, and he said, "Yes." And I just felt like I was losing my mind, you know, like I was like, it was like in a few seconds, everything I thought about myself, the world, everything was being challenged. Like I was either talking to God or I'd gone completely insane.
At that point, I had an experience. I had no grid for this at all. My inner being, my spirit man, went perpendicular to my body, and I was like immediately ejected and transported, and I all of a sudden was thrust into a spiritual dimension. I looked at myself, and there was nothing wrong with me. This was a real place. And I was also traveling.
Turn around, get out of here. It sounded like people burning. People, like the last beat. Not even knowing why, I just said, "I believe." And all of a sudden, boom, I'm gone.
That's when Jordan says Jesus pulled him out of hell and took him to heaven.
He was all in white. He was in a robe when I saw him. And he looked at me, and he wears a crown on his head. His eyes are fierce like fire, but there is no like color, just bright looking at me. And he just is amazing. You're at his feet. You're at the Lord's feet because he's just perfect. You worship him because he's the Almighty. You worship him because he saved us.
Jordan shared his journey to heaven and hell with his girlfriend Danica.
His voice changed, his eyes changed, his body language changed. Everything about him was new. It was different. So there was no doubting that he had had the experience that he did.
The hospital. And so, as for me, I had no idea I'd been pronounced clinically dead. To me, I was asleep. The trouble was, as I closed my eyes, which, you know, things go dark, I suddenly found myself in a standing upright position, wide awake. I knew I was awake. The trouble was, it was pitch black. And my first thought was, why on earth did those doctors go and turn the lights out in here? I mean, that's enough to spin anyone out, you know what I mean? Why on earth would they do that? What kind of hospital is this? As I stood there, wondering how long I'd been asleep for and why the lights are out, you know what I mean? 1 minute it's a hospital room, next minute it's pitch black. I thought, well, don't freak out. Let your eyes accustom to the dark. Maybe you've woken up too quick. So I kept looking, thinking my pupils are dilated. No light. Couldn't see a thing. It was pitch black, like a dark room. So, well, okay. There must be some light in here somewhere. So I turned around 360 degrees, checking out to see if there's some light. Couldn't see a thing. I thought, well, I'll go and just find a wall, you know, find a wall here, get the light switch, turn it on, see where we are. As I went out to my right, I couldn't find the wall. I thought, that's weird. Have they moved me? Maybe that's why the lights are out. They've moved me down to the general ward while I've been asleep. I've woken up, the lights are out, they don't want to wake the other patients. So I thought, well, I'll go back to my bed, find my hospital bed, should be a lamp near there, and that shouldn't wake too many people up. So I started moving back to the left, groping around looking for my bed. Couldn't find it. I thought, great, you idiot, now you've lost your bed. How on earth did you do that? You know what I mean? You would talk to yourself, so I'm groping around trying to find my hospital bed, can't find it, and another thought comes into my mind. It's so dark in here, you can't even see your hand in front of your face. I thought, well, is it that dark? I brought my hand up. As it did towards my face, my hand seemed to pass straight through my face, like there was nothing physically there. That's impossible. You can't miss your head, it's not that dark. 2 hands. Brought both hands up to where my face should be. Both hands seemed to pass.
Do end my life. I heard these really loud thoughts in my head, call to me and I will save you. And I didn't understand what it was. I thought, oh, now I'm nuts. I've got bipolar disorder. I just freaked out. I thought something was wrong with me. And I turned on the TV and Passion of the Christ had just come out. And all my life I knew Jesus had died for my sins, but I couldn't live up to what? I couldn't be perfect. Everything I had been taught was to be perfect, and I couldn't live up to it. So I felt so shameful. When I was watching this clip, I knew I tried to go to sleep that night. And as I was trying to go to sleep, call to me and I will save you. Call to me and I will save you. It was just loud. I couldn't sleep. I actually got annoyed and I just screamed, oh, who the blankety blank are you? I mean, I had a foul mouth at that time and I was just irritated. And I screamed, who are you? And he said, I am Jesus. Call to me and I will save you. And then I got the revelation that Jesus was God and that he was the one that went to the cross for me. He was the one. And that the Spirit came down on me. I felt different. I got up and I looked in the mirror and I had black below my eyes. I looked terrible, but I didn't look like a drug addict. I didn't look like an alcoholic. I actually looked like a person, like I was worth something. And I had all these thoughts all about the Lord and just learning that I was accepted and loved. It was just amazing that I was accepted and loved because I wasn't all my life. Nobody cared about me my whole life, and here this big God cared about me. So I didn't have any worth. If he could reach into a life like mine, he can reach into anybody's life. And he can speak the most beautiful words when you feel like you're nothing. He's just amazing.
As Bruce slipped under the truck, the 20-ton capacity jack holding up the truck shot out from its position.
And this 10,000, 12,000 pounds of weight that is on these two front wheels, on this axle, came down across my midsection, basically like a blunt guillotine, and just crushed me in half. Blood had splattered the inside of my throat, the back of my throat when it fell. And I could see that there was less than an inch of airspace between the bottom of the axle and the cement. So I knew that I was thinner than it, my body was thinner than an inch. The man jacked the truck up off of me. Never felt any kind of pain like that. The very next thing it is, I just called out, Lord, help me. I called it out twice, Lord, help me.
Instantly, all of the pain left Bruce's body.
At that point, I went unconscious. My spirit left my body, floated up into the ceiling, and now my spirit is looking down on the accident scene from above.
His ribs were broken, his pancreas and spleen crushed, and several major arteries had been severed.
I had five places that major arteries were completely severed. I found out from doctors that there was a medical study done. They can't find anyone else in the world that's ever lived with 5 major arteries being severed. So I should have bled to death in just a few minutes. So myself, miracle after miracle after miracle, God just kept showing up and showing himself very real and strong, that he is the miracle worker.
Today, through their organization, Sweetbread Ministries, Bruce and his family travel together to talk about supernatural healing. Bruce has also written a book called Saved by Angels.
Miracle after miracle after
near-death experience in the book, Heaven is for Real.
And he started throwing up into the toilet, and, well, Dad, Jesus has markers. Dad, Jesus has markers. I didn't know what he meant. So I finally asked the right question. Colton, where are Jesus' markers? And he drops his toys down, and he stands up, and he just points, Dad, they were right here. He takes his fingers, points to the palms, then he bends over and touches the tops of his feet and looks up to me. That's where Jesus' markers were, Dad.
When I was in the throne room of God to start with, so I got to see what that looked like. I was upset because I didn't know what was happening. What God did is he...
The baby died in your tummy. And I just looked at him like, well, how do you know you have 2 sisters? Well, she told me. And then he proceeded to describe her.
She looked like Cassie, but she had brown hair. And first time when she saw me, she just came up and hugged me.
We knew this was true because he said, she kept hugging me. She wouldn't stop hugging me, Mom, and I didn't like that.
Well, I'm not really the hugging type.
I miss her.
With gallstones. As she lay in the hospital waiting for surgery, she called out to Jesus.
Jesus, I know you have healed a lot of people in the past. And would you please come and heal me if you are true? I am broken financially. I am alone. I don't have family to take care of me. and I cannot just survive during this situation alone. After I finished my asking and my request of Jesus, the room was full of light. And out of that light, Jesus came to me in real human body. And he stretched his hands, and he was close to me, standing by my bed. And he said, "Come to me, who are weary and carry heavy burden. I will give you rest."
The words she heard in that hospital room were the same.
And he truly, when he appeared to me, there is no one will deny him that he is not God. I felt like I am so dirty and so full of sin. And he is holy. He is righteous. He is beautiful.
Doctor.
The first thing that comes to me is he's bright, just like John says. He's brighter than the noonday sun. And the next phrase I say, I wish people could grab it. And it's this one. And we could look at him. And what you're looking at is not so much the physical part of it. You're really experiencing the love he has for you. And I tell people it's like he only loves you and no one else.
Don Piper died. He went straight to heaven's gate. And 90 minutes later, he came back.
Don Piper was killed instantly when a tractor-trailer hit his Ford Escort head-on, crushing the small car. Paramedics covered Don's mangled body with a tarp. Then, Dick Onaker, a minister.
Of course, I didn't have earthly eyes, but you could see him. What I really wanted to do is run down that street and up that hill and just fall at his feet and say, "Thank you for letting me be here."
What did you do? What
did God was speaking to him. So he got permission to crawl in the car, put his hand on my right shoulder, and he began to pray for me and sing hymns. 90 minutes after that started, he's singing "What a Friend We Have in Jesus," and I start singing it with him. And he got out of the car really fast at that point and went over and said something to the effect, "The dead man is singing." Yeah, and
they're infidel, and what they're doing is not pleasing to Allah, and we are the soldier of Allah who will make them do it.
Kamal Salim was born in Lebanon to a devout Muslim family. As early as 4 years old, he remembers sitting at the kitchen table while his mother taught him about the Quran and his duty to Allah and jihad.
From my childhood, my mom said, "One day you'll be a martyr, my son. You will place to another to do a recruitment." And that day I had a car wreck. The car wreck was so severe, I ejected out of my car, landed on my neck, broke my neck in 2 places. This man came running to me, and he said, "Don't worry, we're going to take care of you, and everything's going to be all right." The ambulance came and picked me up, and now I go to the hospital. The orthopedic surgeon in the emergency room looked at my chart, and he just said, "Son, we are going to take care of you, and everything's going to be all right." The second day, I wake up in the hospital, and this head of physical therapy, come and read my chart, and he turned around and he said the same thing, word for word. "We are going to take care of you."
At first, Kamal was frightened by their words, because these men were all Christians.
You see, in terrorism, if they said, "We're going to take care of you," you'd better run.
Surgeries to repair Kamal's broken neck were successful, but recovery would take weeks. After being discharged from the hospital, he would need someone to care for him while he recuperated. Kamal had no one, so the orthopedic surgeon opened up his own home to this stranger.
In his home, they put me in the choicest room, in the most beautiful thing. I became like part of their family. They didn't see me any different, and now they have a basket set for Kamal. They put in money to free my bills from the hospitals.
Kamal was overwhelmed with the outpouring of Christian love. As he recovered, he began to help out around the house with cooking and cleaning.
They have Jewish friends, they came from Israel, that they support, and now I'm hugging Israelis and I'm cooking for Jews. I go, what has happened to me?
When Kamal was able to take care of himself and return to another surprise for him.
He said, "This is the keys to the house, and here's an extra key. This is your new car. We just want to bless you. You can come anytime you want." So I go to my home, and I go to my cold place that I haven't been there in months, and dust is this thick. And I just got to settle this issue with my God to know that if it's real or not. So I walk inside, I shut the door, I go right in the eastern window, and I fall on my knees, and I put my hands to the heavens, and I cry up to my God. Allah, Allah, my Lord and my King, why have you done such a thing to me? I'm okay with the car wreck. I'm okay with all this, but why did you put me among Christians? I'm confused. These Christians and Jews, they're good people. There's nothing wrong with them. They don't want to kill us. They're not the same thing that I learned about them. Allah, these people have relationship with their God. These people, they cry out to the God and they answer them. I want to hear your voice. I want to hear you love me. If you're real, speak to me. I want to hear your voice. Guess what Allah said that day? Absolutely nothing.
Kamal felt that because he questioned his faith, the honorable thing to do was to end his own life.
So I went to reach out my guns and put it in the right place and clock out. I heard the voice. The voice knew me by name. He said, Kamal, 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 why don't you call on God of Father Abraham and Isaac and Jacob? And now I fell on my knees and I put my hands to the heavens immediately as I heard the voice, and I cried out with every fiber within me, God the Father Abraham, if you are real, will you speak to me? God the Father Abraham, if you are real, I want to know you. Well, God of Father Abraham came to the room, and he filled the room with his glory, and his name was Yahweh. The Lord is one. In his hand, he has holes in his hand. He has holes in his feet. His name is Jesus. I said to him, who are you, my Lord? Who are you? He said, I am that I am. I said, I'm a simple man with a simple mind. What is that supposed to mean? He said, I am the Alpha. I am the Omega. I am the beginning. I am the end. I am everything that is in between. I have known you before I formed the foundation of the earth. I have loved you before I formed you in your mother womb. Rise up. Rise up, come on. Kum. You are my warrior. You are not their warrior. And I said to him, I said, my Lord, I will live and die for you. He said, do not die for me. I died for you that you may live.
That day, instead of taking his life, Kamal gave it to Jesus.